Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this webinar. It's a great idea to spend a Saturday morning or afternoon thinking about the next exam, the ECCE, the examination for the Certificate of Competency in English. My name is Fernando Florking. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications and Stakeholder Relations. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Emily Clifford, our Academic Services Manager. We just launched a poll. I don't know if anybody's joining us now. You can start answering when you're planning to take ECCE. But thank you for spending a little time with us, and thank you for sending all your questions when you register for the webinar. We organized most of the content of the webinar trying to respond to your questions. So we'll go over a little about the audience and explaining a little bit more about the level of English expected when you're taking ECCE in order to pass ECCE, an overview of different types of skills that you need to have developed that you normally do in any of your English language courses, global skills, local skills, and differential skills, and an overview of the different sections of the test to give you, and Emily has a lot of good tips to share with you in terms of how to prepare and how to better keep developing your English skills. Of course, always work with your teachers, your centers where you're working with in order to develop your English skills and prepare to take the exams. They know you very well, and they can give you a lot more information in terms of what you need to do in order to improve your English proficiency. So let's end this poll and share the results now. So it seems that the great majority of you are planning to take ECCE this December and 15% next year. With one person that is really planning ahead and thinking about the exam in December of 2024. Great job. You're the only one here planning for the very far future at this point. Great work. You're really ahead of everybody else. And a little more information about the results. When you registered, we were gathering information about some information from you. The great majority has been studying English for more than 6 years, 6 to 9 in this case, and even more than 12 years, good percentage of you. So, which is approximately what test takers need or students need in order to reach this high intermediate level of proficiency in general. And the great majority of you said that you haven't taken other exams so far. So this would be the first one. Only 29% took another exam before this type of standardized exam. And the next one, in terms of the easiest sections that you felt, or at least the language skills, I assume, that you feel are easier for you to communicate in English and to express yourself, would be, well, the first pie chart shows how many skills you identified, and the great majority felt that there was one important skill. 62% felt that there was one main skill that was easier for you in general, and then some other combinations. But in terms of skills that you have identified as easier in a way, or that you feel, I would assume you feel more comfortable with, 39% think it's listening comprehension, 29% speaking. So those are probably reading and writing might be harder based on this. But if we look at the next slide, the ones that have been 39% of you think that writing is the hardest section to prepare for, and 32% think that reading is the hardest skill. So those are the main skills that you want to prepare for or practice more in some way. So thanks for all the comments that I see that are coming up. We'll start with an overview of the exam, ECCE, the examination for the Certificate of Competency in English. And which started in early 90s to evaluate levels of proficiency at the B2 level of the Common European Framework of References. We only administer ECCE through our network of authorized test centers, and you know which ones you're working with near your area, and your teachers definitely know who to contact with more information about the exam, the registration process, the administration itself. So some of the questions were about the level of difficulty of the exam. Is it easy to pass or not, or how the final grade is calculated? Well, let's look at this chart and see. You can answer by yourself. Do you think you can use the language fluently, accurately, effectively on a wide range of general topics that it might be also academic, vocational, more like your own personal areas, interests, hobbies? Do you always do that? Can you often do that accurately, fluently, and effectively? Or do you rarely do that? Can you express yourself clearly without needing to restrict what you want to say? Do you feel limited sometimes in terms of how you're trying to explain ideas and you have to go back? Can you fluently explain ideas without any concerns? Can you give clear descriptions? Express viewpoints? Can you develop your arguments? Can you always do that without any restrictions in some way? Do you understand main ideas of complex tests? Can you interact easily with other users of English? Can you use simple as well as complex grammatical structures? You can. Oh, there are some comments that I cannot see the slides. What? Why not? Can everybody confirm that you're following the slides? Can everybody see the slides? There are some yes and no's. Okay, so mostly yes. Okay. And can you write on a wide range of subjects and explain a viewpoint, giving the advantages and disadvantages of different options? So this can give you an idea of what, if you answered always, or most often, mostly yes to all these ideas, these are basically adapted from descriptors from the B2 level from the Council of Europe's documents describing what is expected at this level. So if you feel, based on your estimations, and especially your teacher will give you more reassurance about when you're ready to take the exam, as in this case. But if you're reaching this level of proficiency when you feel confident about these skills, these areas, and how you're expressing yourself, you are most likely ready to take the exam. So Emily will go over a few ideas about different types of skills that you need to be aware of.
Thank you, Fernando. And hi, everyone. So yes, as Fernando mentioned, there are three main sub-skills that you will come across on the ECCE. The first one is global. Global skills are concerned with the main idea or the overall topic of something. So a question might be, what are they talking about? So it's asking you about the wide or big picture. Then in the middle, you can see local. Local skills and questions are about specific and detailed information. So it might ask, what is the color of something, or what did they say? And then the final one we're going to talk about today is inferential. And inferential skills are where we find information or information we can learn from a text when it's not directly given. So maybe asking why something happens or what might they do next. So we'll have a look at some examples of different types of questions. So the first one, global. This is an example ECCE listening task from listening part 1, and it's testing a global skill. So the main idea of the conversation is that the microscopes are missing. And the question is, what is missing from the school? So we can look at the pictures. You would hear the conversation rather than read it. And you'd be able to answer that the microscopes are what's missing. So option A. And here is an example of an ECCE reading question, which is testing the local sub-skills. In order to answer the question, what is most likely true of the fish the moonfish captures, the reader would need to scan the text. You'd need to scan through that reading passage to find the detailed information about the moonfish prey. And the text talks about them being cold-blooded, and it also mentions cold-blooded fish are called ectotherms. So by understanding these specific details, we can find that the answer is option D. And lastly, inferential skills. So this is an example of an inferential listening question, listening part 1 again, where you hear a woman talking about trying to arrange delivery of a new table. And she never directly says she will put the table in the car. It is implied or suggested when she says, I guess we'll have to make it fit. So we can understand that the option or the answer for this one is option C. She's going to be taking it in the car. So Fernando's going to talk about some questions you had about the exam in general.
Yeah, there were several questions about how the exam is administered, the procedures that you're following, and I thought we would share some of the instructions that you will have to you will hear when you're taking the test. Some of you were asking about the stages, the procedures of the exam, and what to do about multiple choice items. So one of if you look at this graphic taken from one of the first documents from the booklet, you will see some of the instructions that you will start with. You will begin with the writing section of the test, and we will see a few more instructions from the rest of the activities that you will have to complete during the test. And you will begin filling in information about your name and your center number, your registration, as you see here. And you will have to fill in the answer, the kind of bubbles there in the answer sheet, so that we can identify you when we're scanning your answers and recording your responses. One of your questions was how we liked ECCE exams as a kid. I've been living in the United States for more than 20 years, but I was not born here. I was born in Uruguay, and I didn't really take ECCE, but I took ECP when I was younger. And that was really the beginning. Taking ECP, the other higher level of proficiency exam, was the beginning of my English teaching career. I ended up working with Michigan a few years later, well, many years later after I took the exam. So that's one interesting story that I can share with you about the impact of having taken ECP. A few more questions about that you had. You're going to have breaks and time management and many things related to the short amount of time that you have to complete so many things during the test. Well, the exam is designed in terms of how many items and how much time is assigned to each section, appropriately to the level of English proficiency that we're expecting you to have at this point. So that's why we look at the different sections of a test. If you continue, write that. You will begin with the writing section. You will have 30 minutes to complete that. There are instructions and things to do in between. Then the listening section follows right after that. There are no breaks. You will just finish 30 minutes with the writing section, and then the next section begins with the listening as it's scheduled. And the listening goes on based on the recording and the pauses that are already planned for each of the items of the test. So that's something that you will continue without any, there is a certain amount of time allocated to that, but it's not what you're monitoring in that case. And then you have the reading section that includes grammar, vocabulary, and reading items. You have 75 minutes to complete that. Within that section, you can look at vocabulary or grammar or reading, and you can go back and forth only within that part. But you cannot go back to listening, or you definitely cannot go back to the writing section because you already finished that. So here we have the top, the instructions again for the writing section, and we'll go over a few more details about the other instructions about different steps that you will have to follow for the other sections of the test, especially for the listening and reading and multiple choice items that you will complete there. But you see that there is a lot of information that you have to fill in order to complete the writing section. But look at the very first paragraph there. Look only at your own test. Test takers giving or receiving answers or using notes or other aids will be disqualified and they will fail. So examination fees will not be refunded there. Yeah, I see your kind of sad faces going up there, but you have to be careful. Anything suspicious will be really flagged, and it's not a fun part of the exam to invalidate someone's test because something wrong happened during the test. So be careful, just focus on your own test. You cannot share any information. There are proctors that will be looking at everything that is happening during the test. Let's continue with the listening section.
All right, thank you for all that information, Fernando. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the listening section specifically. So the listening section has two parts. There's 45 questions in total, and it lasts for around 45 minutes. In part one, you hear short conversations with 25 multiple choice questions, just like the examples that we saw already with the global and the inferential skills. You get the three answers are presented as pictures, and you hear each conversation twice. Then you have part two, where you listen to 4 short talks by a single speaker, just one person talking, followed by 20 multiple choice questions. And in this part, each talk is again played twice. And the listening section is scored automatically by computer. So we already saw some listening part one questions. So we wanted to show an example for listening part two. So for listening part two, here is an example transcript and a question. You'll need to read the question and listen carefully for the answer. It's a little tricky to do this because it looks like it's a reading exercise, but it's not. This is a listening exercise. So you will hear the speaker talking about, in this example, coconut oil, and you need to listen out for the speaker talking about damaged hair. And you can see from the transcript here, the speaker says directly that coconut oil can help heal damaged hair. So we're able to understand right here that the answer is option A. So to help you prepare for listening, we have some tips. You had some questions asking how to be better at listening, how to remember the answers from listening. So I hope these tips will help you. It's really important as you prepare to take ECCE that you listen to English language podcasts, English songs, English videos as much as you can. Listen to all of the English that you can. And each time you listen, practice the multiple skills we've talked about. Practice listening for the main idea. Practice listening for specific details. And finally, practice listening for information that is not directly given. Always be an active listener. So give yourself a goal and a task to complete every time you listen to something. It can also be helpful to think about listening in 3 stages. You have pre-listening, which is things you can do before you listen to something. So this can be building your vocabulary, thinking about what you already know about the topic, or predicting what you might hear, and reading the questions before you listen. Then while you're listening, as we've said, work out what the main idea is. What are they talking about? Infer maybe an opinion and pick out some key details. Practice taking notes for part 2, particularly where you hear the longer talks, writing down keywords or phrases and summarize what you're hearing as you listen. And finally, after you've listened, post-listening, talk to someone else about what you heard, or use a transcript to confirm details, make sure you didn't miss anything, or go and do some research, find out more about the topic on your own. And if you're doing all of these things, preparing for your listening, I think that will help answer your question, how to be better on listening. We also had some questions about the exam specifically.
Yeah, there were several questions about the listening section in particular and how it is administered. So how easy it might be, how clear the audio might be. So the examination rooms are, the recordings first are professionally done. So the audio is going to be very clear, very clearly enunciated. It's going to be recorded in order to be used in an examination like this one. So we don't have any concerns about that part. And in terms of the administration of the test, the equipment and everything will have been tested before, so you will be sure that it will be fine as well. Headphones or not, that depends on the different centers. The majority, they won't need headphones, but it depends on the centers, how they are administering those. Will it be given extra time to transfer your answers to the listening section? No, you don't have any extra time. So that's why I have the instructions for the listening and reading parts of the answer sheet, where you have to record all your answers. So look at the first, can you go on? No, not yet. So at the top, you have information about what you have to fill in for this answer sheet. In particular, information about your name, center, several things. But then you have at the bottom of the first column under listening and reading, these are the instructions. If you continue with that red box right there, this test is machine scored, so you must follow instructions carefully. Do not fold or crease your answer sheet. You will be reading this information from the test booklet when during the day of the test. Mark all your answers on the separate answer sheet. Answers marked on the booklet will not be scored. So, and you will not have time to transfer your answers from the booklet into the answer sheet. So while you're listening to the test, you will be try to keep track of all the different questions and the options on the booklet that you're going as you listen to the different passages, the different sections of the test, and your answers you have to record on the answer sheet, on a separate answer sheet, which is where what will be used to scan and get your listening results for that section of the test. Make heavy black marks that fill the cert completely. Your mark must be dark enough to be read by the scanning machine. The scanner cannot see very light marks, and that's why you have to use special pencil. Then you will get instructions about that as well, but you have to fill in, as you see the examples on those bubbles, each of your answers. Do not make any other marks on your answer sheet. If you change your mind about an answer, you can erase it, but you have to erase it completely. Don't leave any kind of blurry marks there. Fill in only one circle for each question. If you have two, it will be wrong. So only one question can be filled in, only one answer per question. And any question with more than one answer marked will be counted wrong. If you're not sure about an answer, you still can guess and make your best guess to decide what might be the best answer for that question. Even if you were not sure, don't just risk that from the beginning, but if you don't know exactly what it was. And at the bottom of the other page, this listening section of the test has two parts. Mark all your answers on the separate answer sheet. Do not make any stray marks on the answer sheet. If you change your mind, erase your first answer completely. If you do not know the answer, you may guess. Try to answer as many questions as possible. So this is at the very beginning of the listening section. What I read before and what you have on the right-hand side here is on the test booklet as the instructions when you begin with the listening and reading section of the test. So, and I saw that there was another question that you had posted, whether we will be sharing the recording, that we will be publishing this later on within the next week or so. So you will have access to this information as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the ECCE reading section now. We talked a little bit already about the reading, but this will give you a bit more detail. So there's 3 parts to ECCE reading and 65 questions total. And as Fernando mentioned earlier, you have 75 minutes to complete the reading section. So part 1, you have 15 multiple choice grammar questions. You'll be given a sentence with a missing word or phrase and 4 answer options to complete the sentence. Then you have 14 multiple choice vocabulary questions, which are structured very similarly. You have an incomplete sentence. You need to choose the correct answer to fill in the sentence. And finally, reading part 3, you have single reading passages, which are followed by 12 multiple choice questions, and 2 sets of 4 multiple passage reading, which are linked by theme. They're thematically related passages, followed by 24 questions. And just like with listening, the reading section is scored automatically by computer. So let's take a look at some example questions. Here are some sample grammar questions where you can see you have the sentence, Michaela tried blank lights in the conference room, but they did not work. And then you have 4 options, which you need to choose the correct answer to fill in the blank. And then for vocabulary, very similar. You have an incomplete sentence with a blank. If you listen, blank, you can hear the sound of the river far off in the distance. And then you choose between hardly, closely, precisely, and sharply for whichever vocabulary word correctly completes that sentence. And here is an example with a single text passage. You will always be given a sentence that explains what the topic of the passage is. So for this example, you can see this passage is about a type of computer software. And then each passage will be followed by a series of multiple choice questions. These questions may ask you about the main idea, as in question 1, what is the main topic of the passage? They might ask you for specific details, as in question 2 here, where were the earliest reading devices usually located? And you might find questions that ask for inferential skills, like why is this mentioned? Or you might have a question like question 3 here that requires you to connect ideas from different parts of the text. So you need to answer the question, why do all the reading, or what do all the reading devices described in the passage have in common? So you'll need to connect ideas from different parts of that text to answer the question. And finally, this is an example of the multiple text passage, the thematically linked passages. So all of the text passages will be on a related topic. In this example, they're all related to birds and bird watching. And there will be questions about the individual passages first, and then you will be asked questions about more than one of these passages, and you will be asked to connect ideas from more than one passage. So for example, here you've got which sections mention beginner bird watchers. So you need to read all 4 to work out which ones contain information about beginner bird watchers. And question 2, why might snowy owls mentioned in section B have flown so far south? And to answer this question, you need to take information from text D, where you learn about snowy owl migration, in order to work out why the birds in section B have flown south. So you need to read all of the text passages in order to answer the questions. So for preparing for the reading section, you had quite a lot of questions about reading, asking how to improve your score, how can I do better, how to eliminate choices in reading, and how to get a better understanding on the reading. So to prepare for reading, much like with listening, you need to read as much as possible. Every time you read, you're helping yourself prepare for your exam. And each time you read, practice these different skills of reading for the main idea, reading for specific information, and finding information that's not directly given. Practice active reading. So always give yourself a goal and a task to complete. Read the questions, then read the text, and that will help you guide your reading and make sure you're looking for specific information. And also, it can be very helpful to keep a vocabulary notebook. So whenever you discover new and interesting words, write them down, and then try to use them as much as you can. And that can really help with your reading skills in general. We have 3 reading stages we can talk about, just like with listening. So before you start reading something, work on building your vocabulary, think about what you already know about the topic, predict what you think you might read about. And as I said, always read the questions first. Then while you're reading, try to work out what the main idea is, what is it mainly about, perhaps infer an opinion, try to work out what the author might think about the topic based on the information they give you, and identify the details, all of the specific information. And practice skimming and scanning. So searching quickly for a keyword in the text to find the answer quickly, as well as reading really carefully and closely. Oh, I apologize. I went to skip 2 ahead there. All right. And then for after listening, post listening, talk to someone else about what you've read, share your opinions. You could summarize or paraphrase the text for somebody else to let them know what it was about. Or have a go at writing something on your own about a similar topic or the same topic, but giving a different point of view. So you can combine reading and writing practice, and that can really help you prepare. In terms of your question about eliminating choices in reading, you can do this in the exam, looking at the different answer options and testing whether each answer option is correct by going back in the text, finding if that has been mentioned, and then reading all of the information to see if the answer is correct. So we had some general questions about reading again. Fernando, would you like to?
Yeah, but something to add to what you were saying, Emily, the best way to improve your reading comprehension skills for the test is to read a lot. How many of you read something on your own just because you like it? Can you tell us on the chat what you like to read, how often you like to read, if it's anything will help you, because it will help you with your vocabulary, understanding ideas, identifying more complex structures in the written text that you're reading, the different types of genres, the different types of books or novels or short stories or news or articles or, I don't know, biographies. There might be different types of things that you like or that you enjoy. But the more you read, the better your overall language proficiency will be, and the better prepared you will be for the exam. I see everything that you're saying about everything you like. Marvel books, Phantom of the Opera, Harry Potter. Oh, come on, take it easy. And if you go back to the previous ones with the single text passage, Emily, the previous one more, right there. So as Emily was explaining, when you read this, you will have several questions as you noticed, and you will quickly look at the questions, quickly scan through the different options and see if you tend to understand the general idea that you're being asked in that case. So when you can scan through the whole article and you can read it more in detail, or you will be looking for information to answer those questions. In some cases, the main idea might be at the beginning, at the end of the passage. It might be mentioned throughout the whole passage in some way. It's not that all the information will be in that order, but in general, the different questions will be asking about different things that are mentioned in a sequence in some way within the article. And so make sure that you're looking at the questions and the options in some way, but especially the questions before you start reading the passage, so you know exactly what you're going to be looking for. You need to understand everything, but especially what you're being asked about. And the same about the next passage. When you have multiple passages, as Emily was explaining, some of the questions might be referring to in section 1 or B, or A, B, C, or D in this case. But that's why you have to quickly have an understanding of what each of them will be about, to know which ones you can discard, but which ones you don't have to worry too much about, or where you have to really look more carefully to find the details that you're looking for. And now to the rest of your questions. We included some of the instructions that you will find on the test booklet when you begin the reading section. As Emily explained, the reading section is all multiple choice, and it includes grammar, vocabulary, and reading passages, different types of reading passages. So you will have finished the writing section, you will have finished the listening section, and then you will be ready to begin with the reading section of the test. And these are the first instructions that you will see. Do not begin this section until the examiner has read these instructions to you. Do not turn the page until the examiner has told you to do so. So you have to stay on the booklet, you have to stay on this page while the instructions are being completed. This section contains 65 questions, and each one has one correct answer. So as we mentioned before, don't leave any questions unanswered. Respond to all of them. You can go back if you still have time, but make sure that you checked all of them. There are some examples that you will see during the instructions to make sure that you really understood those. But then it says, mark all your answers on the separate answer sheet. You will be looking at the booklet with your questions and the answers and the reading passages, but your answers have to be, you have to mark your answers on the answer sheet, not on the test booklet. So do not make any stray marks on the answer sheet. If you change your mind about an answer, erase your first answer completely. If you do not know the answer, you may guess. Try to answer as many questions as possible. 75 minutes to answer 65 questions. If you finish before the time is over, you may check your answers within the reading section only. Do not go back to the listening section of the exam, and do not leave the room before the end of the time period. You have to stay there in silence until the entire group is dismissed. So those are several of the questions about what you can do if you can go back to another section, or those are explained in the instructions that you will hear the day of the test. I know you will be nervous that day, but try to stay focused and pay close attention to everything that the proctors, the examiners, and the staff during the examination will help you with, and read the instructions. Really follow what they're saying here. Every sentence that you see in the instructions is written with a special purpose, and it's mainly helping you to be clear about what is expected in that case. So we already covered how to be prepared for reading and ideas, but especially the more you read, the better for you. And let's go on with the speaking section. So all the other sections, the writing, listening, and reading, are taking on the exam as one during the same administration, that date. The speaking test is scheduled separately, and you will do that through the exam center, and your teacher will help you with that. But the speaking section, the administration of the speaking section of the ECCE is done separately from the other exams. In some cases, it's the same day. In other cases, it's before the final exam date, but they are really close by anyway. So there are several questions about the procedures of the exam, the sections of the speaking test, how to answer during the speaking test, and there are examples on our website. But the speaking section lasts about 15 minutes, and you have to complete 4 stages throughout the speaking test. It's conducted in person with, you're going to be interacting with an examiner. These are certified examiners that have been approved by Michigan in language assessment to be able to conduct these exams. So there are 4 stages that you can see here. During the stage 1, you will be introducing yourself, then you will ask questions to gather some information, and we'll show you an example here. Then you will just present information and justify your decision, providing suggestions and recommendations. But it's basically what your decision is based on the information that you gathered before, and you will justify why you made that decision. And then you will discuss the topic in more detail. The examiner will be giving you a few more questions to engage in a more detailed discussion. The examiners will be evaluating your performance based on specific rubrics, based on the criteria that we have developed and that they've been trained to use and interpret. So here you have an example of one of the speaking prompts. This is what you will get during the speaking test when you have a situation and specific instructions as to what you have to do. The situation in this case, I'm the principal of an elementary school. We would like to hold an outdoor event for our students. The goal is to have a large, fun outdoor event to encourage children to be more active. Find out what our options are and tell me which one you think is best. So you will ask about the options, you will ask about the advantages of each option and the disadvantages. And then when you have all the information, you will explain what solution you're going to propose and explaining why you chose that option, using some of the information that you gathered from your interaction with the examiner before. And then you will be asked a few more questions about the topic. Like, for example, you can see them now. You continue, Emily, with the next one. These are some possible questions that you could be asked. What is your favorite outdoor activity? These are related to the topic that you've been talking about so far. People usually find it easy to exercise if they do it with another person. Why do you think that it's the case? Or some people think health is a private or personal issue that should not be a concern of government. Why? Okay. You can continue with the next one. These are the main categories that the examiners will use to evaluate your speaking. It's based on your communicative effectiveness, how effectively you can communicate ideas, how you're using grammar and vocabulary overall, like range of structures that you use and vocabulary that you use, and how well you speak, how fluently, your intonation, your pauses, your going back and forth, your hesitations. So if you, as we explained from the beginning, if you can express yourself fluently and explaining your ideas, justifying your ideas clearly with information that you gather from the interaction to show that you understood what the examiner was telling you, and you could use that information to in your response and incorporate that as part of your explanation, that is what they will be expecting. Is it a problem to speak British or American English, or no? As long as it's comprehensible and understandable by the other interlocutor, you can continue the conversation, you can engage in your conversation. As you see, Emily and I have completely different accents, and we're hopefully efficient in communicating our ideas. You're not going to be penalized because you have one type of accent over another. You have to be able to clearly explain your points of view. And can I take notes? You don't need to take notes necessarily. It's not something you will be interacting. It's part of like a conversation. It's not something you will stop to take notes of what the examiner is telling you to do. And it's mainly that's what you need to practice when you're talking with your teachers or a friend or somebody else. You're not writing down ideas to say later. It's basically part of this natural flow of this conversation that you're going to engage with has to be as natural as possible. So it's not a problem if you take notes if you have to, but that's not necessarily something that will characterize a normal conversation, engaging question and answers to engage in that kind of interaction for that purpose. And the last one on speaking, hope we were answering all the other questions that you've asked about the speaking section already. Any tips, Emily, on how to improve speaking performance?
Sure. First, I'd really like to know what you're all doing to practice speaking, because this is one of the harder ones. We had a question about how can I practice or improve my speaking if I'm at home and not in class. So I'd love to hear from you about what you do to practice speaking. And I can go through some tips as well while you're letting us know. As Fernando mentioned, the speaking section is a conversation. You're interacting with the examiner. So it's not really like a prepared speech. However, when you're practicing, it can be helpful to prepare something first, research the topic that you're going to be talking about, think about different possible viewpoints, learn some new vocabulary, and plan out what you want to say before you say it. When you're practicing at first, it is important as you get closer to your exam, and I know a lot of you are planning on taking your exam in December. As you get closer to the exam, you need to start speaking more spontaneously and not needing to prepare so much and being able to interact with someone else. So one of the best tips I can give you for preparing for the speaking examination is to speak with other people. Maybe, oh, apologies. Sorry. Talk with someone else, maybe a classmate, teacher, maybe family members that speak English, or even join an online community where you can speak with other people in English and ask them for feedback. Give them some feedback. You know, you can work together to improve. And while you're speaking, you should always practice giving descriptions of different actions or different courses of action you can take, discussing advantages and disadvantages, and always supporting your choices with reasons. So let's see what you're doing to practice.
Great.
Watching movies. Okay, there's so I hope these are some helpful suggestions for how you can improve your speaking. And speaking more fluently really comes with practice and feeling confident in what you're saying. Improving pronunciation, watch English videos with English speakers, and you can, you know, copy the pronunciation that you're hearing. That's a really great way to improve your pronunciation. And as Fernando said, it's not important which accent you're speaking with. What's important is that you're speaking clearly and able to express yourself. So let's move on to the writing.
Yeah. So the order how we presented the information here is not exactly the order that you will follow during the test. The writing is the first task that you will have when you begin your test. We'll begin with the writing section, then continue with listening, and finish with the reading section. And here you will have to complete one task in 30 minutes. You're given two options, either an email or a letter and an essay, and you have to choose one of those to respond to for the writing section of the ECCE. There is no word limit and there's no minimum number of words. You don't have to count the number of words that you're using. It's basically about the ideas and how clearly you're expressing the main points that you want to share, how you're elaborating on and responding to the questions or the prompt that you're asked. So it's not about the number of words. Don't count the words. It's really the quality of the response that you're providing that will explain with sufficient detail or not enough detail, depends, how you're going to be evaluated. And so there are questions about the writing section in general. You can read those at the top. Topics, and won't get into there are more resources on our website where you can see examples of writing for ECCE performances, things, but some details, and these were some of the questions that you were asking in the chat or in the Q&A. You choose either one of those two options, and you will have to mark on the answer sheet, I chose this or this one. So you will either have an email or a letter. As task 1 or task 2 will always be an essay. You have two choices to choose from. You have to write on only one of them, not two. And Once you have chosen your task, you have to darken the circle for email, letter, or essay on your writing answer document. You will have 30 minutes to write your answer. You have to use a number 2 soft pencil only, because that's how it will be captured as well. You do not use a pen. You use a pencil for this purpose. Use only the lines provided on the writing answer document to complete this section, and you should write about a page usually for that amount of time that you have. But to develop your, it's important that how you develop your response. So it will take you almost around a page. Some people can write more, others write slightly less than that. It's not about the quantity, but overall, that's what would be expected for the amount of time that you have, and in order to elaborate sufficiently to respond, to provide a satisfactory response. Don't write your answer on the test booklet. You will have a special answer sheet for the writing section. It will not be graded on the appearance of your paper, but your handwriting has to be clearly readable. It has to be something easy for the examiner to read. These are people that are trained to understand and read and evaluate your written responses. And if they struggle to really figure out what you try to say, that's going to be an issue. You may use the planning area provided in the booklet, but that it is not going to count toward your score. We're not going to be looking at your plan. That's something that will help you with the planning and spending a few minutes. And we'll explain that in a minute. But there is a section on the booklet where you can jot down ideas before you start actually writing on the answer sheet, on your writing sheet in this case. So do use that and spend a couple of minutes. That will help you plan, organize your ideas in your mind, follow general how you're going to start with your response, what are the main supporting details. Just jot down a few ideas that can help you figure out in your mind how you're going to be responding to the entire essay or the other email or letter that you have in this case, and that will help you prepare a much better response in that sense. The main areas that you're going to be evaluated on are the content, how you're developing your response, the quality of your ideas, and how well developed that response is, how the ideas are organized and connected, how you use different linking expressions within a certain paragraph to show how you're organizing the information that you're providing, how you're linking ideas from different paragraphs to the main topic that you're trying to explain. The grammar, vocabulary, the variety of structures that you're using, and the kind of communicative effect. How effective is your written response? Do you understand who you're talking to? Is this the right approach, the right tone, the right information? Writing to the principal or writing to an editor, or are you considering the audience for this kind of more formal type of writing? How many paragraphs and all spelling mistakes? We talked a little about that. How many paragraphs is you have to be able to respond in a detailed way, of course, within the time frame that you have. It's not going to be several pages long, but it's mostly important that you're covering, I don't know, the 2 sides that are being considered in prompt. Make sure that you're fully developing those 2 sides. So it will be the number of paragraphs that you think will be necessary to develop each main idea if you're starting a main idea with each paragraph. What else do we have? This is an example of a writing prompt, and we're going to see an email in a minute. So the email option that you have in this case, as you can see, you have task 1, an email. It's not a letter in this case. And task 2, you have the option of an essay. For the email, the principal of a local high school wants to require students to spend the first 10 minutes of every class doing physical exercises led by their teacher. He wants to know what students think of this idea. So you have to write that's a topic. You have to write an email. That's the purpose of this writing task, to the principal to explain your opinion. That's the audience that you have to consider. When you're writing to the principal of your school, it's not an informal way of talking or writing as you do with your friends. It's a different type of language that you're going to be using. And this is a formal question that the principal is asking, so you have to provide a formal response and give reasons to support your ideas. Start your email, Dear Principal Brown. So you start your email, Dear Principal Brown, and then develop your, let's look at one example. And while we're doing that, I'm going to post a poll to see how you think this, how you would evaluate this response. Can you read this, Emily?
Sure. Dear Principal Brown, as an active member of our high school community, I am writing to you to express my opinion on whether or not students should do physical exercises in the beginning of each class. On the positive side, exercising before every class will help students take out the energy they've been given from the break, where they were talking with their friends and having fun. This will help them clear off their minds and concentrate on their lesson. It may also help students feel more active, especially during the first couple teaching hours when they've just woken up. Adding up, doing daily workouts like these will benefit both the students and the teachers' physical shape. It can probably be a fun activity that they'll look forward to as well. On the negative side, the lessons time will be reduced, and so teachers will push their students more in order to be able to teach them what needs to be taught in a shorter period of time. Furthermore, some teachers might be inexperienced. This will cause them to show the children incorrect exercises, which could even lead to them getting injuries. Last but not least, some kids with physical disabilities will not be able to participate in such activities. This will result in them feeling alone and maybe even left out. To sum up, I believe that this activity will benefit the students, but in my opinion, it should be optional rather than obligatory. I hope my opinion will prove useful and that my views will be taken under consideration with great respect.
Right. And we have a lot of your responses already. Overall, you think it's a satisfactory response, either highly or satisfactory. We'll see that in a minute. Great. So let's look at the general categories that how this response, all responses will be evaluated. In terms of content and development, as you can see, the test taker wrote an email to Principal Brown following the instructions as from that they were provided, and stating the purpose of the email in paragraph 1. Then devoting 2 paragraphs to the positive and negative sides of this argument, and finishing with a recommendation in the conclusion. That's very clear. The content is sufficient, and the organization, the next slide, shows that ideas are clearly organized, paragraphs are coherent, they are very well linked within the paragraph. You know how the different ideas are flowing. There are there's good use of different linking words, connectors to show, like, for example, on the negative side. And furthermore, last but not least, in the final paragraph starting to sum up, I believe that this activity, these expressions are not used mechanically or just like thrown in the middle of a paragraph. They are really connecting the ideas and showing what's coming next. And this is still another additional idea in addition, on top of the previous ones. And in terms of grammar and vocabulary, you can see good use of vocabulary, very using not just frequent words. They're using appropriate words that describe the different ideas clearly. The writer is also using complex structures, mostly accurately in most cases. There might be a few minor errors. There are a few spelling errors, but none of the errors interfere with the understanding of a general message or what's being communicated in this case. And the tone of the communicative effect, or in terms of how the the writer considers the audience and the impact that it has, it shows that as an active member of our high school community, the writer is introducing himself or herself from the beginning as understanding and knowing what they're talking about, and finishes with great respect. So it shows the kind of relationship that you would expect in terms of an email for the principal in order to provide your opinions, analyzing the side from the topic from two sides, and providing politely and respectfully providing opinions on how to respond to this. Emily, the next one. And the result is, yeah, it's a high pass. This is a very well-written response. It's an example of an email. And there's another one after that. Yeah.
So Fernando already mentioned about planning, so I will try to keep this quick, but it really, really, really is important to plan your response before you start writing. I know that in the exam you can feel like you're pressured for time, but this is a very valuable use of your time, and you have the planning area there on your answer sheet. So use it and just make a very quick plan. It could just be 3 minutes, but it will help you get a better score, because while you're planning, you'll be able to generate your ideas. You'll be able to make sure both sides of the topic are included. You'll avoid repeating yourself. Make sure every idea is fully developed and you've got supporting details. You can make sure the structure, you can lay out all of your ideas and make sure the structure is logical and everything is well organized. And when you have already laid out all of your ideas, it means you can focus on your language while you're writing, and you won't be worrying about the content while you write, because you'll already have all of that in your plan, and you can focus on using your best English to write your response. A quick activity idea for you to help you prepare. Think of some controversial topics, and for each topic, give yourself 3 to 5 minutes to develop a quick plan, either for an essay or an email, and then review your plans to make sure you've covered both sides of the argument, that everything's logically organized, you've grouped your ideas together if they're related to each other, and you included ideas for supporting details. Keep practicing that. Every topic you can think of, write a quick plan. And the more you get used to developing these plans quickly, the less time it will take in the exam, and you will really benefit from doing it. Talking about developing ideas quickly as well. Again, you're in the exam, you may feel under pressure for time, and it can be difficult to come up with ideas quickly. So here are some ideas of things you can do to prepare to help you get used to developing these ideas in a short amount of time. And one of the best ways to do that is to become familiar with current events. So watch, listen to, or read the news if you're not already doing so. Not only is it giving you reading practice or listening practice, but it will make you aware of what's going on, and you can pick some interesting news items to write about, considering your own opinion. Anytime you read about a new topic or a new idea, think about, what do you think about that? And then write about it. You could try coming up with possible solutions to a problem you read about, or identify 5 pros and 5 cons on a topic that you find interesting, and just develop a list quickly. Brainstorming can also really help develop ideas. When you're brainstorming, just give yourself 3 minutes. All ideas you have count. You could do this individually or you could do it with a partner, but just write down every single idea you have on the topic, and then you can look at it, group things into categories, and choose the most relevant ones for your assignment or for your writing response. So finally, from me, to prepare for the exam, as we've talked about, you will be writing by hand with a pencil. So practice writing by hand. Don't practice writing on the computer. It's important that you work those hand muscles and really get used to writing by hand. And practice with a timer. So give yourself maybe a little bit more time than you get in the exam when you start, and slowly reduce that time so you're able to write a response in 25 minutes. And then that will help you feel more confident when you go into the exam. I talked about developing a series of short plans, get used to practicing planning very quickly, but effectively, and keep writing as much as possible. Just keep practicing, keep writing. And I would like to wish you all good luck on your exam.
Yeah, a few final questions. I think we covered the majority of these in one way or another. These were from the ones that you sent initially. Improving your writing skills. It's keep writing, and Emily already gave you a lot of ideas. Good structure. They have to be well organized. Paragraphs showing each main idea with enough development examples. Justify your ideas in the best possible way you can, and planning will help you with that. Paragraphs, time management, length. Yes. Do we skip a line after each paragraph? You don't have to necessarily. If you want to identify that there are different sections, that's fine. The example that we saw had lines in between that indicated the beginning of those paragraphs, but it's more the content and how you're organizing your paragraphs that will give the examiners the idea that you're developing your essay or your letter to your responses in an efficient way, in a detailed way. Last questions about your confidence, but your stress. I know these are important dates, and you will remember those exams, those dates for the rest of your life, most likely. But just stay focused. Don't kind of worry about other things. Stay focused on what you need to do. Become familiar with the exam. Make sure that you're familiar with the timing and the format, the instructions. Try to practice with an exam in terms of all the different sections within the time that you already have, so that you know what to expect in terms of your responses. But try to stay focused and do your best. I'm sure that you will find a way to remain focused on each of the different sections at a time. You cannot go back and forth all the different parts of the test. You have to work on certain sections one at a time. And stay focused. Just stay confident that you can do this. And it's the more you practice in advance, and the more you use English in general, the more you read, the more you're listening to something else in English, the more you're writing, the more you're practicing your oral skills, the better, the more confident you will feel about what you're doing during the speaking test or during the rest of the test. So thank you very much. I think we answered the majority of the questions that you posted in general. Remember to answer on the answer sheet, not on the test booklet. It's a pencil that you're using in most of those cases. There are examples of writing, several resources on our website. Emily mentioned several suggestions about how to improve your different skills: speaking, listening, reading, writing. So we'll be sharing the recording later on this week, and all the best of luck on the exam. Hope to see all your names on new certificates by the end of the year. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.